the question that kept coming back was why? Why is he dead? Why did they kill him?
And talk about another really important story, because there have been big protests in London following the fatal shooting of a young man, a 24-year-old man, by an armed police officer on Monday, and a homicide investigation has begun. Now, yesterday, people gathered outside Scotland Yard, and rapper Stormzy was amongst the protest. Of course, it was Chris Kaba who was killed by police in Streatham Hill on Monday evening. He was shot despite being unarmed. Now, earlier this week, his parents, Helen and Prosper, spoke of their loss.
We are shocked to see that in this century, from specialists of the law like police can shortcut someone's life, especially a young boy.
Police is taking case for me. I don't know how to say, but I need justice to be done for Chris. This is very racist. It's not good. I need the justice to be done, the criminal justice to be done.
Incredibly distressing to hear just obviously how much pain Chris's parents must be in. Well, joining me now with the story is the Times' crime correspondent, David Woode. David, welcome to the show. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, you were at the protest yesterday. Tell us what the atmosphere was like. What are people saying about what's happened? And maybe just take our listeners through exactly what did happen on Monday night.
Okay, yeah. So shortly before 10 o'clock on Monday evening, the police made tactical contact with an Audi that was driven by Chris Kaba, 24-year-old rapper from Wembley, who performed under the name as Maddox. He was shot and killed, and he died en route to hospital. The IOPC, the Independent Office for Police Conduct, launched an investigation, and that we are still waiting for some answers, predominantly where Chris was shot, how he died, and the reasons why the police were following his vehicle. At that time, the police said that it was suspicious, a suspect vehicle. I was on the scene on Tuesday morning and again on Wednesday. And I think the one thing I can describe was like the bewilderment of a lot of his friends. The question that kept coming back was why? Why is he dead? Why did they kill him? Again, on Thursday and Friday, there were smaller protests that weren't sanctioned by the family. Those took place outside Brixton Police Station, about 30 to 50 people demanding answers, demanding justice. On Friday morning, on social media, posters and flyers began being posted regarding the protest that took place yesterday. It was a peaceful demonstration that started in Parliament Square and culminated in a rally outside Scotland Yard. I got there shortly after midday, and one of the first things that really struck me was hearing Chris's mother, Helen, just howling in pain. Streatham MP, Belrabiro Addy, and Labour MP, Diana Abbott, were among those to speak, calling for this to remain a peaceful protest and calling on the IOPC to release the body cam footage. The family had already called for a homicide investigation, and that was announced on Friday, as you mentioned earlier in your intro. And one of the things that the IPC stressed was that just because this is now a homicide investigation does not necessarily mean that criminal charges will follow. The protest moved off quite quickly. One of the first things we heard was the chants, "Who are the murderers? The police are the murderers, and no justice, no peace." There were people carrying banners, and some homemade, some professionally made. One of the things that I spotted quite quickly was how people were joining the protest along the route as it made its way towards Westminster Station. Some of the some of the banners read, "The Met has blood on its hands. Being black is not a crime, and justice for Chris Kaba." Black and green smoke flares were let off as the crowd continued to chant. Outside Scotland Yard, under the watchful eye of police officers, activist Marvina Newton told the crowd, "I want us to leave in peace. We are not the antagonizers. When you get back to your neighborhood, take this message of peace and respect. Do not do anything that will destroy the name and campaign for Chris Kaba."
So, I mean, that was a very, very helpful overview, David, taking us from the incident, of course, on Monday. And of course, tensions are running very, very high on this because, you know, as far as we know, the facts are he was shot. It looks like he was unarmed. His family and activists are saying that, you know, their feeling is that, you know, if he hadn't been a young black man, he would have been arrested, not killed. And there's certainly a feeling, is there not, that this could become a really, really big case, another big challenge for the Metropolitan Police to take on. I mean, it's, you know, many of us will think back to Mark Duggan, of course. Many of us will look to America. Of course, George Floyd is the obvious example. I mean, how big a story do you think this is going to become, and how serious could this be?
I think that kind of rests on some of the questions that need to be answered. So you mentioned about, you know, why was he shot? A lot of many of his friends asked me, or they were telling me, why didn't they shoot his wheels? Why didn't they use a taser? He wasn't given a chance to get out of the car, they claimed. I think you're right about the rising tensions. What's interesting is the incident happened in Lambeth. And Lambeth is the borough where, not far from Brixton, where there's been tensions going back 40, 50 years with the police and the black community. So this is something that the police are well aware of. And a lot of work has been done to try and bridge these tensions. But like you said, the IPC had confirmed late last week that Kaba was unarmed. So we're just waiting for answers as to why the police were following the vehicle and why it was deemed suspect. Although the IPC did say on Friday that the vehicle was not registered to Kaba.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very important to see how this story develops. I mean, and of course, the Metropolitan Police has a new leader, but the Metropolitan Police has really lost trust with a huge amount of the people it serves, the Black and Asian community. I mean, this goes back a long time. We remember the inquiry into the murder, the handling of the murder of Stephen Lawrence, when the Macpherson report came up with that phrase, institutional racism at the Metropolitan Police, something that they have been trying to really try and clean their reputation on that. Of course, post Sarah Everard, a lot of women in the capital are feeling very mistrustful of the Metropolitan Police. How does the Metropolitan Police navigate this, David, when trust is very, very fragile right now?
Well, I think, this has happened at a critical time. So tomorrow, Sir Mark Rowley takes charge of the Metropolitan Police. And, among the many things in his in tray is not only repairing trust between women, minority communities, and those from LGBT backgrounds. It's also making sure that people can feel that they can trust the police. So if you call them when you're in need or when there's an incident, that they'll come and that they'll listen to you, and that people feel like they'll be treated equally. It's a really hard one to assess, but I think we'll only know once Sir Mark takes the role and we see what he says, if he releases a statement or addresses the public in the next few days, where the priority is for him. But I'm sure this is very, very high on the Met's list.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be one of the very top things in his intro, or it absolutely should be. David, fascinating to speak with you. Thank you very, very much for that update. Incredibly helpful. This is a very, very important story, and one which we will keep across. That's David Woode, crime correspondent for The Times, talking about the killing of Chris Kaba.